Hey there, Bolters. Welcome back to another premium customer workshop. We've got a really packed agenda for you today. We'll learn how to supercharge your app by connecting agentic workflows. So we'll be using the N8N builder, and then by using an HTTP request, we'll be able to send data directly from it into your Bolt database. So we'll be creating a workspace in Linear that'll automatically trigger an N8N workflow and then send that over into Bolt. Now, just a little bit of warning ahead of time, we weren't actually able to fit all of the content into the 1 hour of the workshop today. So you'll notice it's broken down into 3 different parts. The first part is the first hour of everything that I could teach in the time possible. Then what we did is we opened the floor to other bolters and we let them present their projects. So we've got 3 presentations, which will take about 15 minutes. And then the last 15 minutes is the last part of the workshop where we just tidy things up. We get the rest of the workflow working. So with that, let's dive into it. What we're going to be doing is we will be going over how to add superpowers into your Bolt project by connecting agentic workflows. We'll be basically creating your agentic workflows within N8N, and then we will be basically running those agents and then sending all of that information directly into your Bolt database. By connecting these agents, it adds all sorts of things. Your creativity is basically your only limit. So we'll be going over how to connect that to Linear, a task tracking app, and going through that entire process on this call. So super excited to have you join us. Now, just as a little bit of housekeeping, you can see we've got Erica on our call. So she's one of our customer success engineers.
Hey, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, so Erica will be here in the comment section. So notice we're a little bit different from how Zoom normally works. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comment section and we're able to highlight those, put them on screen. We can't actually reply directly to your individual comments, so it's just one continuous stream. She'll be doing her best to get to all of them. So as always, feel free to introduce yourselves, say where you're calling in from. I know we get people from all over the world. So say hello. You can say what your background is. And if there's like a Bolt project that you're proud of, maybe you've recently published it or gone live with, feel free. You can drop that in the link so anyone else on this call is able to look at it for a little bit of inspiration. Now, there is one more exciting thing that I want to mention to you this week is we're actually going to be doing a little show and tell section at the end of the workshop. So if you've been working really hard, you've built something that you're super proud of, and you want to share that with other people here on the workshop, then at the very end, what we'll do is we'll give chance to a few of you, probably just a handful, where you'll have a minute or two where you'll be able to share your screen and present what you've been working on and basically share that with the rest of the workshop. So stay tuned for that. And then once we get to the end of the workshop, we'll be sending out a link where you'll be able to join this live stream and share what you've been working on. So with that, let's dive right into adding superpowers by connecting agentic workflows. Now, the agenda for today is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our task tracking app. So we're going to be using Linear. Now, Linear is similar to like Jira or other task tracking apps that kind of lend themselves really well for developers. And, you know, it's a great way to kind of manage tickets. Anybody in your team can submit these tickets and then you can mark them as completed. And then you can save them in your backlog, or you can say they're in review. And it's a great way to manage your tasks. So we're going to quickly look through Linear. We're going to set that up and we're going to connect it to an N8N workflow. Now, some of you probably haven't heard of N8N, but we'll be going over that as well. Within N8N, that's where we're going to be performing an agentic action. So we're going to connect an LLM to these linear tickets to be able to summarize them. And then by using an HTTP request, we'll then be able to send that over into our Bolt database. And we'll make sure that we're determining the correct JSON structure along the way for the data transfer and then send that into the Bolt database. So with that, let's dive into it. First of all, what I'm going to do is we're going to get started in Linear. So if we have a quick look here, this is what the Linear workspace looks like. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to entirely create a new workspace. So if you don't have Linear, it's like a free tool. Feel free to like download it and use it. So I'm just going to create a new workspace entirely from scratch. I'm going to call this workshop for Bolt. Great. So we're going to create this workspace. If you've got any questions along the way, feel free to leave them in the comments. Erica will share them on the screen and I'll answer them. Okay, so here we are in Linear. We have just set it up our new workspace, and these are some example tasks that it has. So notice if I click on one of these, we can change the status here where, okay, now it's in progress, or we can change it to done, canceled, etc. Let's come back in, and if we want to make a new one, let's say, please implement dark mode on the dashboard. And we can add a description and we'll create the issue. Great. So we've got Linear set up and working. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into our settings, and under security and access, I'm going to create a personal API key. And we're going to create this API key. So here we go. And I'm going to copy this to our clipboard. Now, please note, if you're unfamiliar with Linear or you're using another tool, then don't let this deter you. This is just one example of what I'm working on, or like one way to get data into N8N. So don't feel like you have to strictly follow this exact process. So we've got our API key copied. Now let's come back in and we'll have a quick look at N8N. This is their homepage, flexible AI workflow automations for technical teams. You can create an account, do a free trial. I think you do need to pay for a subscription, but it's worth testing out, and you can determine on your free trial whether it's worth it or not. So here we are within N8N. I'm going to click on personal. Notice that I've already got 2 workflows set up. These were some demo workflows that I was practicing with, and we're going to create another one entirely from scratch. So let's click on create workflow. And now the first step we're going to do is we need to connect this. We want Linear to be our trigger. So we're going to type in Linear, and you'll see it pops open on the right here. And we can see that we've got all these actions and we've got a trigger. So as our first step in the workflow, we're going to say on Linear event. Now, because we've just created a new Linear workspace, I'm going to have to go ahead and create a new credential. And this is where I'm going to paste that API key that we just copied over from our Linear dashboard. So with that in there, I'm going to click save. Connection tested successfully. Okay, so now we have our trigger, and that's set up here. It's got a little sort of exclamation mark next to it because we haven't fully set it up yet. So that team name that we also created, Workshop for Bolt, we can see that this data is populating through into our N8N workflow. And this can be a little confusing, but I'm just going to say an issue. There's a variety of different things that it can listen to. And so we're going to listen to a specific issue. Now, let's come back into Linear. And what we're going to do is notice that we can click execute step with this first node of our N8N workflow. So it's basically listening for a test event from Linear. So we'll leave that over here. We'll come back into Linear, and here was a ticket that we had just created. Please implement dark mode on the dashboard. Now we're going to change this to done. Now I click this and we'll come back over here, and this has now successfully listened and it's received an output from that event that we just sent through to it. So on the left-hand side of these N8N nodes is where the input is. Because this is the first event, all it needed was sort of just a trigger. And then on the right-hand side is the output. And this is all the data that it just received from that Linear webhook that was sent across. So if we look through, we can see all sorts of data in here. If we look for William, because I was the one who made the ticket, now we can basically search and find all of the locations where I've been mentioned. Also, if we write dark mode, so it's got a URL for this ticket, and then here it should have the description in here, or here we go, here's the title. So please implement dark mode on the dashboard. That's basically some of the information that we're going to be referencing in a second. Now that we've got that set up, what we're going to do is this can trigger. If you change the status of any of these issues within Linear, it's going to come through. But let's now add a filter. So we're going to filter just for our done tickets. Basically, what we want to do is we want to create a tool that summarizes all of the tickets that get marked done within a certain period of time. So let's imagine you're working in your larger team, and every week you want to be able to go to a website and you want to see everything that your team has marked as done and as completed, so you can get a recap of what they've worked on. So that's what we're trying to address here. To do that, what we want to do is we want to create this filter, and we just want to pass all of the tickets through that have been marked as done. Let's look in here, and what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down, and we're basically going to look for the state. And here we go. We can see state, and we can see this is marked as done. So we can simply grab that name, drop it in the top here, and then we'll leave this as is equal to, and we're going to say done. So what that should do is it should only pass items from this input side over to the output side once that's been marked as done. So let's test this out. What I'll do is we'll press execute step. So yep, that's all flowed through perfectly. And if we click execute workflow, here we go. We can see this little loading signal at the bottom. So it's basically waiting for this linear trigger to come through. Let's go over to linear. And now we're going to change this to in progress. If we slide over, we can see by changing its state from done to in progress, it has triggered the linear trigger. It's gone to the filter, and we can see one item has started on the left, and then nothing has come over onto the right. And if we click it, we double click and we open it, we can now see that it's got these two tabs. It's got discarded and kept. And now this was discarded because it didn't meet this condition. So let's do this one more time. What we'll do is we'll execute the workflow. We'll come back in and we'll change this to done. Now we can see that this item has fully gone through, because we can see there's one item on this side. It's got the green bar, and it's now within this kept tab. So that's exactly how we want it for now. Now what we need to do is we want to create a data table. We want to add all of this information within a table here inside N8N. So we can write data table, and then what we're going to do is we want to insert a row. Now here's our input data. We're going to insert a row, and we're basically going to, we want to create a data table. Now, there's a few ways that we can do this. The simplest way that we want to create a data table is we can simply do it right in here. By clicking that, it's brought us to a new tab, and we're going to call this workshop data table. I'm going to create that. And now notice it's got an ID, a created at, and an updated kind of input, but it doesn't have any columns to it yet. So here is where we're basically going to create linear ID. Whoops, linear ID. We're going to add that column. We're also going to add a title. We're going to add a description. And obviously you can configure this table as however you want. Completed by, and the last one I'm going to do is I'm going to do linear URL. Great. So we've now created this table. It's got no rows in it. And the way we can get to our tables is here in N8N on the dashboard, personal. Instead of looking at the workflows, let's come into data tables here. And you can see the workshop data table is the one that we just created, and it's completely empty. Let's jump back into our workflow. Notice that our workshop has my workflow too. So I'm just going to rename this linear trigger workshop. Okay, so there we go. Now we're up to this insert row. Let's just configure this node. So the data table is, we want it to add a row to the workshop data table, the one we just configured. And now these 5 columns that we just created are here. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for the linear ID. So we've got our identifier is WR WOR5. So if we look back into linear, here we go. There's WR5. Every single ticket that you creates this linear ID. So that's exactly what we want. So we're going to bring that in here. Now the title should be in here somewhere. So here we go. Here's the title. I'm going to pop that in. We can also search for description. It didn't actually have a description, so that's kind of empty for now. But if we drag that over, that should add that in there. And then we got to find who it was completed by. So assignee, here we go. Put that in there. And then the linear URL is, I believe it's this one here. I'm going to drag that and we're going to pop that in there. So now when we execute this step, it should put all of that through that goes into our data table. Now, let's just double check on that. So we'll come back into our data tables, we'll open that workshop, and there we go. So we can see that information has successfully gone into the data table. That's one of the N8N workflows that we need to create. Now let's go ahead and create a second one. So basically what we need to do is actually, let's make sure that we publish this. So now that that's all created, I'm going to click publish. We're fine with that. Workflow will be published, and there we go. So now it should be running and it should be live. And whenever I make a change, then it should add something into this data table. So we can maybe test this a few times. Testing issue, description test, put my assignee, will create the issue. And then now that we've done that, let's put it into done. Now if we scroll over here and we look back at our data tables, hopefully we have, there we go. We have a second row testing issue with the description, and this is all working. Okay, so I see we've got one question. How do you know if it's working and not silently failing? Yeah, let me just pop that on. Yeah, so the best way to go about it is sort of testing like this. So what we've done is we'll just come back in, we do a real world example, and once we've tested it out within linear itself, rather than actually kind of executing the workflow within N8N, once the workflow is published, then all we want to do is we just want to test that this works. So we come in, do exactly what we just did, and then we bring that across. Okay, now we're ready to set up the second workflow. Now, this is kind of an exciting one. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start off, we're going to trigger this manually. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to get our rows. So we're going to look at the data table again. We're going to go down and let's see, get rows. Here, we're going to get rows. We're going to choose, we're doing it from the workshop data table. Now our condition, we're going to add our conditions to it here. So the condition is that we want our created at date to equal, and now we're going to put in a value in here. Now let me just copy something over from my notes. I'm going to copy this over and I'm going to put this little JavaScript snippet in. And this basically determines what is the time now minus 10 minutes. And actually we want this to be greater than. So we want the time right now. So the first one is we wanted when we created our linear tickets, we wanted to bring that inside data into N8N. Now, the second thing that we want to do is we're now basically using N8N to aggregate all of the data from the last set amount of time. So in a real world example, we may want to get all of the tickets that have come in from linear from the past week. And then what we're going to do is we're going to send that into an AI agent, which is then going to use an LLM, and it's going to summarize all of those tickets from the last week. And then it's going to spit out a summary, and we're going to send that summary directly into the Bolt database. And we're going to visualize that within our website. For the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to trigger everything that's happening in the last 10 minutes so that you can actually see that this is working. We're going to say we want the time of the created date to be greater or equal than the time from 10 minutes ago. So basically, this filter is only going to bring linear tickets in from the last 10 minutes and then send them out as an output here. And this is a great way. If we trigger this to happen every 10 minutes and it only brings in the last 10 minutes of data, then that's a good way for it to sort of segment all of the data that it's sending to the LLM within these 10-minute slots. As I said, in a real world example, you may want to do this over like a 7-day period or a daily period. So with that, we're also going to make sure that we return all of the items. Now let's hit execute step. So it looks like 2 items have gone through. So we've got our implement dark mode and we've also got the testing issue. What if we change this minutes down to 5 and we execute the step? There we go. We've only got 1 issue coming through. And if we make this a huge amount of minutes and we execute this step, well, because we've only actually sent through 2 into the database right now, it's only showing 2, but you get the point. Now we're ready for the next step. We've been able to get those rows. Now this is the exciting part. We're going to send all of this data to an AI agent. And let's click AI agent. I basically press add AI agent and it builds this AI agent here. Now, there's a few things we need to connect to this. And I know N8N can be a little bit technical. Just bear with us here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to connect a chat model. So I'm going to say an AI chat model. I'm going to choose, GPT mini. Happy with that. Now, let's come back. So we've got that connected in there. Now, the AI agent itself needs a prompt. So we're going to define the prompt below. And here we're actually going to define a prompt for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy a prompt that I had created before. I'll give you guys a little insight into this prompt. So here we go. You're a highly strategic product manager. Your job is to read a list of completed tasks, which are linear issues, and summarize them into a structured report for the team. Here is the raw data. So by adding this little snippet in here, that will send all of the raw data through to the LLM. So there's rules for your output. So you've got to count the tickets, create a high-level summary, create completed ticket lists, etc. Adding a date range. I'm going to copy this prompt and put this into our AI agent here. So there we go. The final thing that we want to do within our AI agent is we want to basically make sure that it sends out this information in a very specific format. So we're going to say we're going to require specific output format, but we'll get to that in a second. So now let's press execute step and we'll see what happens. So basically now with those 2 items that are coming through from our database, it's going to our AI agent and it's sending that raw data off with the system prompt to the chat model, where then it's then able to, it'll execute this node and it'll have an output. In the meantime, let's go into Bolt and let's start getting our interface ready to get all set up. Let me just grab a Bolt prompt that I want to use. So here we go. I'm going to copy a Bolt prompt over. I'm going to add this in here. So let's build a site which acts as a notice board for other members in my team. I would like notice cards stacked vertically on top of each other. Below is example data of the JSON input it will receive via API endpoint. Do not build the API endpoint just yet, but please set up a database which expects this data. Now, I see we've got a question from Scott about guardrails. No, I don't have any guardrails set up on this. And the reason why is because this is just using our own internal linear data. I don't need to worry about any risk of, say, prompt injection from anybody else because this is an internal tool using our linear tickets as the data input. So it should be fine. But you do make a good point that guardrails are important. And that's something worth considering. And if you were building this in something like the OpenAI agent builder, they have guardrails that you can add in there naturally. You mean from hallucinating? Oh, good question. I don't have any hallucination guardrails in here just yet, but that's probably another step that you can add. I don't have a huge amount of time. I just want to get this workshop, this flow built in this workshop. But that's a good point. There are risks of hallucinating, and probably like a good way to consider this is that we want to, define our JSON output. And when we're sending this data over to the API endpoint, that's where we want to export it as JSON data so that it doesn't risk hallucinating. So we should get to that in a sec. So let's go ahead. What I'm going to do is we've got our Bolt prompt here. Now, what I'm going to do is what have we said? So build a site which acts as a notice board for other members of my team. I would like notice cards stacked vertically on top of each other. Below is an example data of the JSON input it will receive via API endpoints. So what I'm going to do is we should get our output data. So let's have a look at this. Here we go. Yeah, we haven't quite built the endpoint data just yet. So I might just manually write that in. Example data that will be receiving should be linear, ID, title, description, completed by, and what was the last one? Let's go over here, linear ID, linear URL. Do not build the API endpoint just yet. Please set up a database which expects this data. Great. So we've got that there. Now, there's another exciting thing that I want to show you guys. We've recently launched MCP support literally today, just an hour or so before this workshop. So basically, I'm not going to do a deep dive on that today, but what I'll do is I'm going to turn off some of these other MCPs that I've enabled before, and ShadCN, which is like a design library, has an MCP. So I'm going to turn that on, and then I'm going to prompt it to please build with ShadCN components where possible. We'll plan this out and we'll start building off this Bolt project. We'll let Bolt do its thing over there. Now let's jump back in. We've got our agent. So here's our agent, and it worked. It had 2 items coming in and it's got 2 items coming out. So what we want to do is we want to actually structure this output. So at the moment, what we're going to do is we want to say we're going to require a specific output format. And to do that, it's requiring us to connect an output parser. We can just come down here, click output parser, and we're going to say structured output parser, like so. Now, by clicking on this, basically what it does is it now shows us what is the input that it's getting from that AI agent. And then now we create a JSON example of the JSON output. And this is what we're going to be sending via HTTP request or response to Bolt itself. So this is kind of where we need to be very specific about the output of this. Now, this can get a little bit complicated. I've got a little snippet here. Now, if this kind of gets a little bit complicated for you, knowing exactly to put as the JSON data, what we can do is we can actually do something as simple as this. So I'm going to take a screenshot of this structured output parser. I'm going to open Gemini. I'm just going to pop this in here. Choose your LLM of choice, and you can basically ask it with a screenshot like this. On the left-hand side of the screenshot, you can see my input. Please help me create an example JSON output that I can use as an HTTP request to convey this information. So we'll send that off, and it'll help us create that JSON response. Now, we'll let it do its thing. What's the most robust way to trigger an N8N workflow from Superbase insert without exposing webhooks in the front end? Should I rely purely on the Superbase database webhooks? Wow, that's a good question. Yeah, so Good point that we don't want to expose these things in the front end like this. You don't want to sort of hard code it. Potentially an edge function, a server function is what I'm thinking. We're actually going to be creating an edge function directly here to receive this data. That may help answer your question. I can see Scott's also said edge function there as well. We'll actually be asking Bolt to create a edge function to do something very similar. So here we go. It's basically created this payload, option 2. Now we do, look, it's putting both of these issues. So if I come back in and we look, let's refine it. So if we, let's just copy one of these issues. Let's put this in here and see how this works. So we've got the linear ID, the title, description completed by. So hopefully that works. Let's come back in here. Notice that our output at the moment, it has these new line breaks and it's got this kind of odd formatting. So now that we've required the specific output format and we've got this output parser, let's execute the step. Error in subnode structured. So let's open this expected non-white character on here. So if we get rid of that, let's try that again. Hopefully it should give structured JSON output now. It's working on that. So it's still digesting our information. Now we look back into Bolt. It's finished our plan. So it should notice its display in reverse chronological order. Yes, newest first. Do you have a color palette? Neutral and green. 3 is completed by field meant to indicate who completed the task or an assignee or who assignee. Great. So we'll turn off plan mode and let's send this off to build. Great. So while Bolt is building, let's have a look back in here. That just finished. And now look at the output from our agent. It's got this structured JSON data. Now, what we'll do is we'll basically come in here and we're going to create HTTP request. So what we want to do is we want to send this directly to Bolt. And we're going to say post. And this is kind of where we need to create this URL. So to do this, what we need to do is we actually want to prompt Bolt itself. So we'll just wait until Bolt finishes building in here, and then we should be able to create this. I guess it's like an API endpoint. So we're sending this data into Bolt to be digested. Here we go. So it's setting up the Bolt database. Okay, so it's already got notices. Here we can see this is the data structure that it's created. So it looks pretty good so far, and it's put some example issues in there. Okay, now this agent workflow that we have at the moment is a very simple one, and it's something that perhaps can be done within Linear itself, or Linear has like the function to do like a summary like this. But what I really wanted to demonstrate is by creating these nodes directly, and you can create this kind of multi-agent workflow, is there's a limitation to how well some of these large language models work. And if you give them too much to work on, then it reduces their performance. So something like this, where you could spin off an AI agent to just do research. Say you're trying to find events in a particular city. You may ask it to just focus on finding events in a particular date range, or you can change what your model is depending on how complex the ask is. Then you can feed that through to another agent and you can say, please summarize all of this information that's come through. And you can string together a multitude of agents, which are actually proving to be really capable. And it's a really effective way. If one LLM can't do everything you're asking for itself, this is kind of a multifaceted way that you can address the task at hand. So let's see how Bolt's going. This is almost done. We've got about 20 minutes left. So we'll get this all done. And then I'm excited. If you guys want to share your projects, obviously no pressure, but feel free. All right. So this is almost done. We'll just let it refresh. What we can do is we can say, please, let's just start getting our next prompt ready. Please create a server function which acts as an API route to ingest data. The data will be in the following format. Please provide, let's come back in here. When we're setting up this HTTP request, please provide the URL or the API endpoint for me to send the data to. Great, so we'll copy that. That's the notification for the MCPs. I guess in the meantime, I can quickly show you how they work. So we've got some default MCPs here. So you can see I've already connected Linear, GitHub, Notion, and I've added a ShadCN as a custom MCP. You can add these yourself. Now, something really exciting about the GitHub MCP, which I was just testing recently, is you can basically ask the Bolt agent directly to go into your GitHub account, as long as you provided all the permissions, and you can say, look at a specific repository and find a particular feature or find a component or a screen or whatever it may be, and bring that into this Bolt project. So now if you've got two Bolt projects and you've saved them both as repos in GitHub, you can now basically use the GitHub MCP and bring features directly from one, because it'll use the context of that other project code base and then bring that in, which is super exciting. I think the agent does get a little bit caught up like this. So what I would do just to naturally sort of diagnose the issue is I'd just press stop. So I guess I might just have to, I'll just start a new project in the meantime. So we'll go grab our prompt. So here we go, copy this, and paste it. Build a site which acts as a notice board for other members in my team. I would like notice cards stacked vertically on top of each other. Below is an example of the JSON input it will receive as API endpoint. And what we can do is we can try and do this all in one shot. Please build a server function to ingest this data with a database. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'll just turn off MCPs. Instead of trying to use the ShadCN MCP, I'm just going to leave that off as well. And we'll make sure that we're going to copy our output data. So here's an example of the output. So I'm going to copy that. And then we'll come back into Bolt. We'll paste that in. We're going to plan it out and build that. Okay. Yeah, as I was saying, if you do run into issues like this, feel free to, sometimes you just got to stop and restart it. It may be something to do with the MCP. I was trying to use the ShadCN MCP here, so maybe that's something we need to diagnose, as it is our launch day. But here we go. Hopefully it should be done in a few minutes. Do we have any questions so far? I hope this is all making sense. I know we had to jump through it quite quickly. And what we can do is we can look through some of these other slides. So Agentic workflows let your app react to the real world without manual intervention, which is a great way you can trigger these things. At the moment, if we look back into our workflows, our first workflow happens automatically every single time you change a linear status. Whereas here, this one at the moment, we've just set it up to trigger the workflow when you press execute. But there are triggers that basically it'll be like a time-based trigger. So if I delete this and I want to add a trigger in here, there's trigger manually. There's also trigger on schedule. So we can get this to schedule every 5 minutes for now. So now by connecting this scheduled trigger, this is a great example of how you can get something to operate once a day, once every 5 minutes, once a week, whatever it may be, so that it triggers this automatically. So now we should start seeing this trigger on a regular basis. Back into Bolt. So it's written our plan. Should the notice board be publicly accessible? I'm going to say no just for the sake of time and to build it out for simplicity. Linear tickets. Okay, let's build that out. So what we've done in this Bolt prompt this time is we've actually copied over kind of the JSON that it's expecting. So now it's going to build out, because we've asked it to build out a server function. It's going to create a server function that will then basically be expecting this JSON data, and then it should use that to ingest it into the Bolt database itself. So let's build this out. That'll probably take a few more minutes. Okay. Yes, I see. I'm using a cheat code. I don't need to worry about burning tokens. This is true. I've obviously built this out twice. The way I look at it is, if you compare this to traditional software development, it's like, for what you can do, like you can build, a working platform for, I don't know, $20 or something, which is just a complete step change in development costs compared to what it was a few years ago. Okay, so we'll let that build out. I know we're probably going to be running short for time, but we'll see how well we go. Now, while that's building, let's see if we have anything else to adjust here. So we basically just need to fill this out. Bolt will provide, once it builds out that API endpoint, it'll provide us with a URL, and then we're going to add our authentication in here. So I'm just going to sort of set this up in the meantime. We're going to choose a generic credential type in here for this HTTP request. And we're going to say header authentication. And we're going to create a new credential. And this is dependent on what Bolt says. So we'll configure a secret that basically provides the authentication. So we've got the secret on the Bolt side, and then we'll add it in here as the header of this HTTP request. And so it'll compare, make sure that they match. And then that's kind of like a secure way so that we don't have any random person making an HTTP request and sending it through. So here we go. This is almost done. Yeah, this one just got stuck. So if I press stop, finish build. Let's see what that does. Okay, almost done. Now what we're going to do in here is, with the HTTP request, is we're going to send this body as well. And this is where it's going to send basically body contents. Now, to do this, one sec, let me just get something set up on my end. We can basically, if we wanted, we can bring all of these in directly. So because this is structured data output, what we're going to do is we're going to click this. We're going to put that in there. Oh, actually, I think what we need to do is we're going to call this linear ID. And then we're going to bring this in here as the value. I'm going to add another body field. I'm going to bring the title in here. So title, add another one. Let's write description. We'll bring the description in here. Then let's add completed by. And we will add the linear URL as well. Okay, so I heard one of these beep. Here we go. All right, so this one is where we tried to set up the server function as well initially from just one prompt. And so you can see it's already giving us a URL that we want to be sending this to. So notice that, I guess we can read through this. So it's created the board, send data to the board, and we want to post it to this. And now notice this is our Superbase URL. So if we come into our code and we look and we see in our .env file that we've got MWHQ, that's our Superbase URL. We've got the same thing here, MWHQ, etc. But now it's added our functions, V1, ingest notice. We're going to copy this. So now that we've copied this, let's then come back into N8. We're going to come to the top of this and we're going to paste this here. So we've added that in there. And it also will need some form of security. Let's see what happens if we try and trigger this directly. So when we try and execute this step, basically what we need to do is we want to add some security here on the Bolt side. So basically what I want to say is let's also consider adding a header to this HTTP request so that this is done in a secure manner. I should save the password here in the Bolt secrets. Okay. So we'll send that off. We'll have a look. Okay, come back in. Now, because our rows have now expired, let's come back into linear and let's create, please add dark mode to the dashboard. Description, add this, great. We'll do another one. Improve the AI agent. The AI agent should have a wider context history. I'm going to create issue. Now in our issues, let's mark both of these as done. Great. We're going to mark this as done. Now with this, we're going to execute that workflow. So it goes off. It's with those two items has gone through to the AI agent. It'll summarize those. And there may be an issue with this request because we haven't added any security just yet, but we'll find out in a sec. So now on the Bolt side of things is we're adding a custom header. So now the server function on Bolt's end is basically going to check that this HTTP request that's coming through from N8N, it's got to have a specific kind of security or some secrets to it. So we're going to come into this Bolt secrets and notice that it says to ingest the endpoint, it's now secured and it requires an X API key header on every post that you send across. And we're going to call this ingest API key. So we're going to open secrets and I'm going to just write password just for the simplicity of this. We'll create this secret. So that's created successfully. We're going to copy that. Now we'll come back into N8N. Now this wasn't working. What we're going to do is our header authentication is we want to send the header and we want to basically add ingest API key. We're going to write password and we're going to save that. So now we're kind of configuring this header. And let's see how well this works. Now it also potentially needs a bearer ID. So what I'm going to do is I just kind of want to show you through this workflow of troubleshooting as well. So what we're going to do is I'm going to bring this screenshot in, and it said, I've added the header to the HTTP request. Does it need a bearer or anything else inside of the HTTP request header? So often it's kind of like a two-step security process. So step one is the information will be sent from N8N over into Bolt. And for Bolt to actually do anything, it needs to match those passwords. And then step two, for the server function that Bolt has created, it'll often need like a bearer ID or some other form of authentication within there as well. It's checking the X API key directly against the ingest API key. So we want to make sure that these are matching in your N8N setup. Instead of using generic credential type with auth header, switch to send headers. Go, let me create a new. So yeah, sometimes getting these headers working correctly can be a little bit of an issue. So X API key, let's copy this. And I think what I'm going to do is we're just going to add it in secrets as well. So let's go into secrets. We're going to say X API key, password. Let's save that as well. I guess we have to use underscore. So we'll come into secrets, X API key, password, create secret. Okay, so that's added. Let's come back into our workflow. X API key, password, save, password. And we're going to add another one. So we'll do the ingest as well. API key. So what we're doing is we're actually sending multiple headers. So we're doing it up here, and then we're kind of doing it manually as well, which isn't an issue. We execute this step. Let's have a look. Okay, we're having problem in node HTTP request. Please check your credentials. So what we can do is let's copy this. We'll copy this error, and we'll come back into Bolt and we'll say getting an error sending the HTTP request. Here it is. Paste that. We'll plan it out and we'll see what it says. Okay, I noticed we've just sort of hit the 1 hour mark. So hopefully we can get this all dialed and we'll be able to send it across into our Bolt project. Ultimately, what it will do is we'll be able to add information directly from N8N into one of these rows here. Okay, so now what it's going to do is it's going to check the edge function and it's going to see how it validates the API key. We've added the error message in there. So there we go. Okay. I can see we've got a few messages here in the chat. Yes, I'm in Pacific time at the moment, so it's late morning for me. Now, let's just see if we can finish this off really quickly. If not, what I'll do is with this recording, we usually post it to YouTube. So I'll finish it off in there and you'll be able to see it. Let's have a look what it says. You have both these configured in the edge function secrets. The code only reads this summary. The fix is straightforward. Remove header auth credential from the N8N node and instead manually add the X API key header with the exact value. Okay, so let's copy this header auth. Header. I think I may have to finish this offline. Let's have a look. I'm reading through the comments now. So let's have a look at our Bolt project. It should have been able to set up a server function in here. So here's our server function. And then to look at the server function, here we go, ingest notice. So it looks like it's looking for the X API key. I know we had header auth before. Let's do X API key, password, save. So we've saved that in there. Let's try this again. Process your request item. Yeah. Look, guys, I feel like I haven't clearly explained this to you guys in particular. I think sometimes I get it working first time and sometimes I don't. So apologies that I haven't been super clear with you on this. What I will do though is I'll make sure that I'll clearly articulate all of the processes that we need to do on a YouTube recording, and we'll post that on our YouTube within the next week or so. So probably sometime before Friday. Apologies, we couldn't quite get this done exactly in time. I think we probably spent a little bit too much time on the N8N side of things. And I also think by configuring all of this in one step, by trying to set up the Bolt project and then also get this server function, there may be some issues that need diagnosing. So with that said, we're going to share a link for everybody to join. If you'd like to present, feel free. So I'll copy this link and I'll paste it here within the chat. So in the comments. Now, basically, you'll see the way this will work, and this is our first time doing this, is I'll open up the floor to Erica if you want to join us again. What we'll do is for anybody, if you do feel like you want to present, you want to share your project, use the link below. By clicking on that, you should enter into our stage and the floor will be yours. We'll add you. You should be able to share your screen with the other viewers on the workshop. Let's see if we have any takers. Okay, we've got one person who's joined. What I'll do is I'll add you onto the stage and let's just spend probably 2 to 3 minutes explaining what you've done in Bolt, and feel free to do a live stream or share your screen as well. So here we go.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Thanks for having me. Yeah, if you don't mind, let me share my screen real quick. So I've been developing this app. Did everybody see my screen? There we go. Yep, it's called the chat. So to quickly run through it, it's basically, an all-in-one AI subscription. I've done everything through Bolt so far. The backend is Superbase also. So I have a application fully working. I have different account creation, admins. Just put the right accounts. There we go.
Wow.
And it's kind of similar to ChatGPT, but it's basically meant to have all AI models in one. So you can go through different AI models, Google, Claude, Perplexity, DeepSeek. We have all these different models. You can speak with it. And the best part about it is we have a personalization aspect. So you can actually go in here, replace, move your mind. And what would happen is you would actually go to your ChatGPT, you would copy the memory that you have, and you can paste it in here. And then when you do that, you would click this. It basically parses all that information and puts it into a structured prompt for all the models that you have. So basically fill all this out automatically. That way, anytime you chat to any one of the AI models, instead of having multiple different dashboards, multiple different prompts, you have a customization here for you that works with all models all in one. You can also upgrade the plans. We plan on adding a few more features soon with image generation, video generation, and basically have it a full all-in-one AI model.
This is incredible. And so you've built this all in Bolt. How long did it take you, if you don't mind me asking?
I've been doing the past couple months, but honestly, it's been in sprints. So I'd say
Yep.
total around 100 hours, maybe a bit more. Just depends on it, mainly bug fixing, especially managing back end. Most of these are API calls with OpenRub. But let me show you the real quick.
How close are you to launch?
Hopefully within 2-3 weeks, I want to integrate the images and video models, and then we're going to have about 3 weeks of testing and hopefully launch mid-April if we can.
Incredible.
You see, basically autofills all this
That's very cool.
as a dark mode too.
One-stop shop.
There you go.
Now, some of you may have seen we've got a bit of a showcase page on our Bolt homepage, and so with the what I wanted to say is for things like this, I think that's an incredible project, and we're working on getting our showcase up and running. So we want our best for you guys to be successful, and so projects like this, feel free to email me. We'll do our best that we can kind of share these with some of our socials, because if you build a project successfully and we can share that with you guys, then we can share that with all of our audience, then hopefully that gets some more eyeballs on your project. What I'll do is I'll leave my email here in the chat in a sec. And then if you can maybe just send me that URL and we can be in touch. And if you'd like to, we can do some sort of like collaboration there and we can sort of showcase this with our wider audience.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be great. Like I mentioned, we plan on hopefully testing in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
We're actually looking for a bunch of different people to specifically test it. That would be very helpful. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for
All
having
right.
me.
Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. So Scott, you're up next. What we'll do is we'll add you to the stage. All right. Scott, the floor is yours.
Okay. So how do I put my, I just have to share it, right? All
There
right.
should be a share screen option. Yeah.
Let's see if we can do this. I have a big screen, so it's going to be a problem, but.
Okay. Take your time. No worries.
Well, oh, you know what? I got it. I'll do this tab. Here we go. Sorry. Here we go. Okay. Can you see that?
Let's have a look.
No.
Not quite. Me, what I'll do.
There it is.
There we go.
There we go. Great.
Okay, so the first one is you were just using N8N. This is N8N, but I think it's better because, so here's flows, right? And here's a flow, and all you have to do is speak. It's a chat. And if you want to send a Google Calendar, you just tell Google to send it, and it'll literally just set it up for you. You don't have to figure out all those crazy things, right? So it's basically N8N with just chatting.
Incredible.
And these all work. Like you could open weather, so it'll go from here to here. If I said create an event on my primary calendar at whatever time with whoever, I'd send this, then it would send it to Slack. And you can create very, very detailed workflows. And it was pretty tough setting up because the key to this was it's all AI, right? So here's where the credentials are set up, your credentials. You can add AI to your API keys. This is the MCP hub. So at this point, I just kind of finished this up where now I can just start registering MCPs. So I'm going to register about 50 MCPs and then launch it and see how it goes.
Wow.
So,
So
I think
this is.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to ask, it's almost like a competitor to something like N8N where people can create these AI automations themselves or these agentic workflows directly by chatting with it.
Exactly. But what you were doing, it's like, so I thought of this because it's Bolt for N8N, right? Here you are. Bolt could have written all that JSON code that N8N. It's like going into Starbucks and they make you say latte and all this other stuff, right? I just want a large coffee. Oh, this is like Bolt for N8N because that's how I came up with that idea. You just go to your flow. Anybody can at least click a button. You start a new flow. You say, okay, I want my Google Calendar. There it is. Connect it. I then want open weather. You know, Slack, like you said, just start connecting them. And all you have to do is then talk to it. So I'll send, you could log in and tell me if it works for you, right?
Yeah. We'd love to test it out, Scott.
And I'm showing you this because this is what I built all in Bolt, which is, and look at how it runs. It's really cool. I'll just do that quick. So this was here. So we had some neat animation when it ran. When it runs, it literally tells you what it's doing. So here it is. It's going into send the Google Calendar. I wonder if I put in the right stuff. It might not have. Yep. So it sent the meeting out. It's saying what it's doing. It's sending out the Slack message. Oh, this is very complicated because it's using the edge functions that we were touching base on. And it literally, this was one of the first edge functions I created. And then over here, you now can have a chat with any one of these nodes, just like, because I'm using OpenAI, right? So it said, could you please provide the specific start and end time of the meeting? Because I didn't provide it here. So now it wants that to finish it.
Wow.
That's awesome.
It works. I mean, I was so happy when it worked too. I saw the calendar things popping up. I'm like, holy cow. Okay. So I'll send that to you. I mean, do you think people would use this?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we just spent 30, 40 minutes seeing the process of using N8N. And if you get one of those little connections wrong, then it can cause an issue for your whole thing.
So here's what I'm going to send you. I'm going to take linear is going to be the next one.
Mhm.
And I wanted to take linear and confluence. So you could, I was waiting for the Bolt MCP. So I'm going to take Bolt. It's going to, every time you finish a, like something works in Bolt, we'll send it over to linear. It'll write it up. It'll send it over. And then linear can send to Slack that it got the message, right? And then it's going to take that and actually register the document, right? The AI can then write up the document as you're kind of building your application, which I thought was pretty
incredible, Scott. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I can't wait to see. Do you have plans to launch it soon? Or as you said, you want to add some.
Yeah, I'm going to send it to you guys because I was waiting. And this is the stock market. This is up. If you guys want to go to app.access.com, we're taking 50 logins. So this is actually an AI app for the stock market. So you could look up any company like NVIDIA, and here it is, right? Everything on the company. Wow. But what's really cool here too is you can have a discussion with AI here, and you could go to your dashboard and you could say, pin a watch list on my dashboard. So it'll help you pin things to these dashboards. It's interactive. So whatever you see here on the screen, it can basically manage with you here in this place. So it's saying back to me, okay, go to Signals desktop, find the custom watch list, dashboard left. So it knows this area. Let me just change one of these here. You see these here?
Yep.
So let me take one of these stocks here. So this is like one of my watch lists, right? So if I wanted to add IBM to this, I could say, I'm just going to show you that. Please add IBM to my watch list. Hopefully it'll work. I was working on this, so it's not working right now. But
yeah. Feel free to drop the URLs in the comments so anybody else can look at it if they'd like to.
Yeah, so this is up at app.access.com. It's free. So you can get real-time stock quotes. You can analyze any stock on the stock market. You can look up private companies. You can look IPOs that are coming out. There's signals for there's IPOs. These are the new IPOs coming out. Like here, there's IPOs coming out here. Everything. Pretty cool.
Thank you for presenting, Scott. I think we've got time for one more. I see Paul Smith has joined as well. We'll hand it over to you in a sec. But yeah, thank you for presenting, Scott. We really appreciate that. It looks great. And Paul, welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, now I switched to the speaker. You can hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay, good. What I've done is something that's actually simple. It's if you know Beethoven, he's written theme and variations, and this is a simple idea. You start with a theme and you follow it with a variation and another variation and another one. But in one instance in his life, he didn't do that. He created a theme, and in each bar of it, he switches to a new variation on the very next bar. So it's a highly fragmented one-shot pass-through of all the variations in his second symphony in the third movement. And I thought it would be fun to chop up all of those pieces in audio and build an interface where people could just kind of play their own version of that same piece of music. I'm going to share the screen. I posted the link in the chat. I'm a little concerned that sharing over this might not transmit the audio to everybody, but that's okay. You'll see how it looks, how it works.
Great. So it's this. So Paul, if you share your screen,
Yes.
we should be able to add it.
Well, I'm getting back from you.
Here we go.
Me too. I think it might be called speaker.
Oh, I'll turn it down. I don't have headphones here with me.
Okay,
And
no
of
problem.
course, you're seeing this kind of, there we go. Okay, you can see this brown thing with the clock face. Good. The way it works is very simple. You press a number and it plays that particular variation, but they're all synchronized together. So
Wow.
so that seems fun or silly, I guess.
Uh-huh.
But I put a YouTube video here for you to hear what Beethoven actually wrote. So you hear how it's almost on every beat, it just sounds very different. There's loud, there's violins, there's the whole orchestra. And I created these 12 versions of that if you just let one play all the way through, it doesn't change. So the idea is that it's your job as kind of the musician to come up with some path through that maybe someone didn't think of before. And you can record them if you want and share them with others and replay them. So here's one that I made a couple of weeks ago. So now I'm not clicking on those buttons, it's just playing it back. And if someone liked that, they could remix it and so forth.
That's
That's my
awesome.
project.
Thank you so much for sharing, Paul. That's super exciting. I honestly didn't know Beethoven was known for chopping up his music that much, but that's a good little music lesson. Thank you. Do you plan to share it? Okay, great. So I think it's just back to Erica and I. So again, if you've got any projects that you feel like are worthy of the Bolt showcase, feel free to share them with me directly here. We can do our best to try and promote those and help you grow if you're close to launch. So I'm happy to be in communication about that with you. And as always, let's say a big thank you to Erica for joining us in the chat. I know we've had a slightly different format this time, not being on Zoom, but hopefully it's been a little bit better. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, your feedback on Luma goes a really long way to helping us determine how much resources we should put into these workshops. So if you like them, your feedback is always greatly appreciated. We've also just recently built a page specifically for these past workshops. So if you go to workshops.bolt.host, you'll be able to find all of the previous workshops. We're also looking to build out that site a little bit more so that we can add GitHub repositories of projects once they're finished. And then also, I think we'll be voting on workshop topics. So stay tuned there. And again, thank you so much, everybody. And I look forward to seeing you next week. We've got office hours again next week on Tuesday, and then another workshop on Thursday. Hey everyone, we're back and we're going to continue the workshop from where we left off. We didn't quite have time to finish everything, so we're going to jump in and just get everything sorted now. So let's have a look at where we're currently at. We've got a little bit of an issue where the header authentication of the HTTP request isn't successfully sending from N8N. So what I'm going to do is let's just test it one more time. At the moment, we're saying we're doing like a header authentication here, and then we're specifying the headers just for certainty in here as well, but it's still not creating any fix. So what we're going to do when we press execute step, we've got this issue. I'm going to take a screenshot of all of this. We can include the input on the left as well. Come into Bolt and let's just drag this directly into our Bolt agent. This is a great way to troubleshoot if you don't exactly know how something is working. So now we'll scroll down as well and we'll take a screenshot of like specifically the headers. Whoops, go. We'll bring that over and drop that into Bolt. And then one more thing is this header auth account. So password, hopefully the agent can understand that. So I'll take a screenshot of that as well. Now let's bring this into Bolt. Let's have a look at our error. So problem in node HTTP request. And let's actually, we'll copy this error details as well. Great, so we'll jump into Bolt and we'll say we're still having an error with the node in N8N, comma, I have copied, I've added screenshots for context. Note that my password is where it is asterisked out. No, that's not really a word, but they should understand it. And then here is the error message from within N8N. We'll paste this error message. It's in plan mode. And we'll see what Bolt says about this. Okay, so the good news, the authentication is now working. You got past the 401. The new error is a 500 server error about the database, not an auth problem. So the error says null value in column ID. So this means the edge function is successfully receiving the request, but when it tries to insert into the notices table, the ID column has no value. So what it should do is it should basically fix the edge function and the database so that it's using the right data. So let's go ahead and it says add auto increment default the ID column, sure. Update the edge function not to require ID column from the payload, sure. And then clean up the N8N headers minor. You currently have 3 things sending the API key in the header, so plus 2 manual. So we can remove the ingest API key from the header. And since that is not a recognized header name by the function, keep only the X API key in the header. Okay, great. So let's go ahead. We'll implement this plan in Bolt. Come back in here, do what they suggested. We don't need this one. And let this agent build it out. Great, so the agent has finished building. It's updated the database and the edge function. So it now should suit the payload of what it's expecting. Now what happens if we press execute? There we go. So node executed successfully. What we'll do is we'll come back into linear and let's just change some of these to in progress and then we'll move them back to done. So we've got dark mode. Let's change this one to please fix the user interface of the database. Great. Instead of a modal, please make it full screen so I can see more of the data. And then, so we've got dark mode on the dashboard written twice. Maybe we'll change this one to say, please improve the layout of the secrets. When I add too many secrets, they overlap at the bottom. So here's some example issues. What we'll do is we'll change that to done, we'll change that to done, and we'll change that to done. So that should fire off our first N8N automation. And then instead of waiting for this time to happen, we're just going to hit execute. So now it's sending all of these items out. And what I want to do with the AI agent is actually go into settings and we're going to hit execute once. So now, no matter how many different items we have coming into it, it should be able to use all of that data and make sure that it only sends out one JSON output. Database table, if we refresh this, hopefully those new items. Yep, so those new items that we just changed have come through. Let's look back in the agent, still working. It should hopefully send all of this out. Let's have a look at Bolt. Okay, here we go. So it looks like it's kind of working. We've got the title. Here's the high-level summary. So the team completed a focused set of front-end UI and layout improvements to enhance usability, adding dark theme, improving views where data and secrets were hard to read. So that's the high-end summary that the agent in N8N was able to create. And then it's got the 3 tickets in here. So it looks like it's working. It's got the count as well. It's got the time zone. Now, there are just sort of some final UI tweaks that we may want to make. So like, for example, we may want these linear links to be visible. We may want the dates to kind of be clearly shown. But you get the point. What we've been able to do is we've been able to move this data across over into Bolt. As soon as you publish this project and somebody views it as like a live URL, whenever they refresh their page, their view of, that's when they're pulling in fresh new data from the database. And so, as I said, you don't need to come in and republish to Bolt. It's got all those added advantages of just streaming directly into the database and then sharing that here on your website. So there we go. I know that last bit was a little bit hairy, trying to work out how that header connection worked and how it works securely with that payload, but we got there in the end. And I hope you found this video really useful.